blurry.
Iran to charge fee in Hormuz. That's something else I've heard. So is Trump prepared to accept a deal that involves a fee in Hormuz? I don't think he is. Not yet. Like and subscribe.
So we have negotiations have been ongoing. Then we had a report from the spokesperson for the foreign ministry, and he said an agreement has been reached with Oman regarding the geographical coordinates of the route for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. It says the route, so it's not going to be two routes. Apparently, it's going to be one, which is what the indications we got yesterday.
And Reuters is saying they're going to toll it. That's what I just saw. That was 12 hours ago. So.
Exactly. So there's a statement from Iran on this. We have studied the various technical, legal, security, and environmental aspects of the discussion with Oman regarding the Strait of Hormuz. The joint statement with Oman is in the final review and drafting stage, unless it is obstructed by third parties. That's by Ismail Baghai, who's the Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesperson. And then about 20 minutes ago, we had a statement by the Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi, who says that an agreement with Oman would not mean Tehran will implement Article 5 of the Islamabad MOU. And Article 5 says that Iran will reopen the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days without a fee. So with him saying this, it contradicts reports that Iranians have agreed for 60 days not to charge a fee.
Right.
And I'll speak.
Yes, that's what Trump wants. Because that's what the MOU's purpose was. Its sole purpose was to open the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days without a fee. All the other stuff the United States promised, it never intended to deliver on. It just wanted oil. What Trump is trying to do now is the same thing. He just wants the oil. He'll agree to whatever nonsense and not live up to his side of the agreement. He just wants a straight open, no fees, and oil to flow. And he's not going to get that.
Speaking to Professor Morandi just before this, and he said from the discussions he's been having, even though 60 days will have a fee, which is pretty extraordinary because that's something that would make it, from a political standpoint, it would make it very difficult for Trump to accept. Now, the Omanis are going to go back to Trump to get, if the Omanis sign it, means it was authorized by the US. So what I'm assuming is happening right now is they're trying to get if they haven't gotten it already, an okay from the US on that particular point, that there will be a fee in those 60 days. And from the discussions from the person that's been, that I speak to that gives me the information that's been pretty accurate. I spoke to him this morning and he said that Arachi and the Omanis already agreed on a deal. Well, that's already used now, but he told me that early in the morning. But now Arachi's going to talk to the elements within the IRGC and the governments that are more opposed or more, they use the word hardliners, but they're more demanding or they're more stubborn with their demands. So there's negotiations happening behind the scenes on the Iranian side on various terms. Now, maybe that already happened. And maybe this is about the fee in the 60 days. That could be the last sticking point. Not if there's going to be a fee whatsoever, but if there's a fee within those 60 days. But either way, all indications are pointing towards a deal. So it's a pretty big turnaround from the threats we were seeing a week ago. All the other reporting is...
Stop, Mario. This is a deal between the Iranians and the Omani. The United States has not okayed this yet. Trump has not okayed there being a fee in the Strait of Hormuz. The entire reason he ripped up the MOU was because he didn't want a fee in the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't think this agreement's going to go through. I don't think Trump is going to okay it.
Axios hinting there's a deal has been reached. Reuters was
Israelis aren't
reached. CNN has been reaching that there's a deal will be reached on Friday, a 50-50 chance the deal will be reached on Friday. So all the news outlets are talking about a deal. One Iranian news outlet that's close to the IRGC was...
Important point is, if there is a fee, then the United States need to lift sanctions on Iran in regard to that fee. Because if there's sanctions on Iran, no ship is going to pay the fee, and traffic won't go through the Strait of Hormuz. So by Iran charging a fee from day one, that means the United States has to lift sanctions day one, or no ships will use Strait of Hormuz.
Was talking about the negotiations being postponed. That happened hours ago, but that was not officialized. So it seems I think there's disagreements happening within Iran, the same way there's disagreements happening within the US.
So if you said that publication was near the IRGC and you just said that the foreign minister is going to have to go and kind of talk to the IRGC elements, that news clipping from the IRGC paper is part of the negotiation within Iran. So that's that. I wouldn't read too much in it. Look, it's a great deal for Iran. This is a great deal. This is a terrible deal for Trump. Trump's going to have to take it if he wants to get out of this thing in one piece. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw, but it looks like Israel conducted precision strikes in southern Lebanon.
Southern Lebanon.
Yep, they did that.
How convenient. How convenient.
No, they're giving an excuse to it. They're saying this is because their soldiers got killed in an IED yesterday or this morning in one of the towns. So it's like 2 deaths and 6 injuries. So they're just using that as justification for retaliation. The only reason I mention this context is because if in a silo, if you don't know about the IED, then it looks like Israel's trying to poke Iran and trying to sabotage the deal. Obviously, if you want to make the argument that this is
Mario, they are.
death by IEDs fabricated,
Mario, they're using this.
I know they
Yes,
are.
they
I don't know.
They are.
I don't think that's striking southern Lebanon because there's another thing they can sabotage. They can sabotage it with the negotiations in. The Lebanese are also negotiating with Israel right now in Rome, so there could be a jab at that. I just don't think a strike in southern Lebanon is going to jeopadize the deal. I don't think the Americans would let that happen.
Last time during the MOU, the Israelis were going, gangbusters trying to end the negotiations for that by attacking southern Lebanon. So I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'm saying I would keep an eye on
from what I saw, the reports are of a very small wave. I think it's actually retaliation for the soldiers that were killed by the IED. I think Trump has really made it clear for Israel not to sabotage this deal. It's existential.
We'll see.
And the US.
I still am not sold that this is going to last. If we get past 18 days,
I am absolutely convinced this won't last. I'm not even sure it's going to start. In fact, I don't think it's going to start. Because for it to start, Trump has to okay a toll in the Strait of Hormuz. Is he going to do that? Because that's accepting that he lost the war.
after this thing is signed, I'll start to feel a little bit better, because 18 days, of course, was how long the MOU lasted. So we'll see, because, in 60 days or 3 months or whatever they're talking about, because yesterday I kept hearing 3 months. Now they're saying 60 days. Okay. Well, that gets us through the politically charged timeline for both Netanyahu and for Trump. So, I mean, we could be back at this thing in another 4 months, 3 months, 5 months, whatever. So
I think there will be an oil shortage, and that will solve it permanently. I'm just waiting for that shortage. I think Iran is now smart enough that it won't agree to open the Strait of Hormuz without a fee, and Trump won't agree to the fee until the oil shortage happens. So this latest deal, I think, is a nothing burger.
We'll see. I hope this is the end. I really do, because this needs
It's
to be
not.
over. But
soon.
It seems like everybody's very optimistic about this, so that's good.
Yeah, even the people that were very skeptical of previous deals, they've been a lot more optimistic on this one. For me, it's just what I look at is, and I've said this so many times, I won't repeat it.
I'm sure that Omani and Iranians are all on board with this. The issue is Trump willing to sign off on a fee in the Strait of Hormuz? And I say no, at least not currently.
There's no other way forward. Like the reason I've been skeptical about boots on the ground is it is a suicide mission, and I'm not in the camp that believes Trump has just gone insane and lost his mind. The reason I don't think a full-blown war is going to happen because it didn't work and there's not enough interceptors there. The reason I don't think energy infrastructure is going to be struck is Iran could do the same. And the biggest one that changed 2 weeks ago is I don't even think there'll be limited strikes.
The interceptors mean nothing, Mario. Trump could just choose to do nothing, choose to not agree to anything. He doesn't need to okay a fee in the Strait of Hormuz. If he doesn't okay his fee in the Strait of Hormuz, it's just continuing of the current pause.
Anymore, because now there may be, this one's hard to really be certain on, but because there won't be too much of them or they won't escalate too much, is because the Iranians have established escalation dominance. So the Americans, if they strike, Trump knows that he doesn't have the ability to stop it whenever he wants. So I don't know, like when I jumped on the interview with Morandi before we went live, I was like just joking with like, congratulations, we can finally celebrate, because he's always been the grim person since I was speaking to him before the 12-day war. He's always been skeptical. He's like, Mario's going to happen, war's going to happen. I'm like, Professor, it won't happen. Then after the 12-day war, I'm like, Professor, this is it. The Americans are not going to get into a war with Iran. There's no way it just doesn't make sense. He's like, Mario, this is a pause. It will happen. He was right. But I was able to get a bit of optimism from him this time around as well.
Well, does he think that this is just a pause, or does he? Because I think this is just a pause.
He thinks we agreed that.
I think this is just a pause, but I don't think it's going to officially actually ever get going. I don't think Trump is going to sign off on this fee in the Strait of Hormuz.
Trump's administration, he doesn't expect hostilities. Long term, after Trump, obviously it's up in the air. It's impossible.
Long term, I wouldn't even venture. Yeah. Although I will say long term, if we don't get those bases back, and I don't think we will, not to the level we did before, projecting power for a sustained another round of warfare, if we go back in 4 or 8 years, would be very difficult. So, maybe we get out of this thing. God, wouldn't that be great? God, that would be so nice. Not just out of the war.
The U.S. position in the Middle East has been drastically weakened. The bases that are right near Iran, these are practically inoperable anymore. And the one in Jordan over here is getting that treatment too.
Or out of the Middle East. That will be like a 25-year mission that I have had
That would be
colleagues
insane.
of mine, to pull back, just do business with the Middle East. Commerce over conflict. That's what Trump said last year. That should be our rallying call.
You're very calm today. You didn't have your Red Bull? No coffee?
No, I haven't had a drop of coffee. I was out in the yard today doing.
You seem very calm.
Also, my children, my wife is in the Everglades on an airboat with my two of my three children. So it was a lot calmer in the house today.
Okay. So on the this is an interesting. So let me just make sure everything on the deal front has been. We've discussed it all. It's going to be one corridor. It's up in the air whether there'll be a fee or not in the 60 days. I was surprised.
On that note, don't know how credible this tweet is, but sounds realistic. Iran is demanding a fee of 7% on all commercial ship passing through the Strait of Hormuz, which Chinese and Russian vessels exempt from the fee, while Oman is discussing smaller fees of around 3%. The U.S. wants no fees at all, per Reuters and an Iranian source. So again, we're near a deal, but does this sound like we're near a deal? And a senior Iranian official says the proposed deal gives Iran control over ships entering the Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz and is one of the biggest concessions yet to Iran, meaning the war launched by the United States and Israel in February had resulted in a major shift in the balance of power in Tehran's favor. Another Iranian source, however, cautions that the devil is in the details and that a single tweet from Trump could cause the whole thing to collapse. Yes, he does do that.
When Professor Morandi told me from the people he's spoken with, there will be a fee in those 60 days.
I told you that yesterday. I said immediately they were going to, yeah. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, look, the Iranians got burned in the MOU. It makes perfect sense from a negotiating standpoint that would be a non-starter. They're not going to ever do that
But
again.
they don't need a fee now. I'll tell you why. They could just charge.
Mario, you're an idiot. If they don't get the fee, they get nothing. They're not getting unfrozen assets, not getting lifted sanctions. The MOU was just Trump getting oil out and relieving the pressure on the world economy, with Iran getting jack shit in return.
After 60 days, what the hell is Trump going to do about it?
Well, this is just...
And the midterms. Yeah, allowing Trump to get enough oil to get through the midterm, that's Iran losing the majority of its leverage, practically.
like them blowing up or attacking those ships in the last couple of days. They're sending a message. They're in control now. Yeah.
Well, there was a ship that was sunk or attacked about an hour ago in a Saudi ship in the Red Sea off Yanbu with anti-ship ballistic missiles. They don't even use drones. They go immediately with the anti-ship ballistics.
That's pretty
These
sick.
guys don't mess around. It's insane. They sunk one yesterday. They literally sunk a ship yesterday.
If I could talk, I have some contacts in Saudi. I have already said this privately. I'll say it publicly again. Just cut a damn deal. Get a deal. It's not the end of the world. Who cares? Get the spice must flow. The oil must flow. Get it going. Saudi Arabia will be better off for it than they can do Vision 2030. And
the Dune reference, the spice must flow.
They're on their way. So
on the Hormuz front, there's a letter that was eight of the world's largest shipping industry associations have urged the United Nations and the International Maritime Organization to oppose any mandatory tolls or transit charges in the Strait of Hormuz, warning that such a move would set a precedent for fees at other major maritime choke points, according to Bloomberg. In a joint letter dated August 3rd, so 2 days ago, to the Secretary General, which Trump really defanged to hell, and the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, Secretary General, the groups argued that transit charges or service fees...
It'll be harder for any other countries to follow Iran's lead. Iran had its supreme leader killed, was bombed for, a total of 2 months now, had a huge part of its infrastructure destroyed, and that's how it earned its fee in the Strait of Hormuz. Other countries, without being attacked by the United States, trying to impose a fee, starting to attack ships, that would turn the world against them. I don't see any other country getting to impose a fee.
Quote, that are a toll in all but name, in other words, an environmental fee. So anything that even looks like a toll would undermine the international legal framework governing navigation through international straits. The letter was signed by major industry organizations, including the International Chamber of Shipping, BIMCO, and the World Shipping Council. I think they should also send a nice thank you letter to President Trump. Dear President, thank you for screwing up the entire system that we've operated under for so many decades.
Furthermore, Mario,
talk about second and third order consequences.
Right.
There's another one.
Well, I interviewed Sal Marsagliano yesterday, and that was really interesting. That was phenomenal. I hope I didn't bore your audience, but I am very interested in shipping insurance. So we spent the whole time explaining to the audience why shipping industry is really not about ships; it's about the insurance industry. And he said, and I was laughing.
There's a little bit about ships too in the shipping industry, just a little, just Just a tad.
Well, the oil guys love Trump. And he goes, yeah. He goes, so do the shipping guys. I go, really? He goes, oh, my God, the shipping insurance guys. He goes, they're just making gangbusters off this thing. So all these people whining in the ship.
Well, making gangbuster, they're also having some claims. Their ships are being damaged and sunk, and those ships have insurance.
Shipping industry about, the international law, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you guys are raking in the dough. Just let it go. And frankly, we've all forgotten, I think, and this is what happens when a world system changes fundamentally, when a paradigm changes. We've all gotten used to that, U.S.-led international world order where the Navy keeps the commons open. Those days are done. That's over. The U.S. Navy is not going to be the world's policeman. Even if it wants to, it can't do it anymore. And so there's a new order, and that's going to be national sovereignty along waterways, which means there will be fees. And that's just the way it goes. And that's okay, by the way. And if you're a business and you don't like that deal, find an alternate route that works.
I will just point out that as of right now, the Strait of Hormuz is seeing almost no shipping traffic. It's not open at all.
Better. That's the great thing about capitalism, And by the way, we talked a lot about... Sorry.
I was just gonna say on this one, just to be fair, their complaint is a very valid complaint.
Oh, it is, but
so it's something that's been warned for a while, even by people before Trump started this war. But obviously, you can't expect.
And in terms of what's being negotiated now, the levels of fee through the Strait of Hormuz, Trump's claim that he'd charge 20% to give Iran leverage. They probably increased their rates to 7% because of Trump.
To go into a country, bomb them, kill their leader, destroy their military infrastructure,
and lose to them, by
their
the way.
Economy, lose to them, and expect no consequences from that. I think the U.S. because of their hegemony, and I don't want to sit there, I hate kind of sitting there bashing any country. Even Israel, I try to always be as objective as I can about everything, even though Israel makes it very hard. But on the American side, that's purely I just mean this very objectively. Because of U.S. hegemony, the U.S. has been able to do a lot of things without accountability. Because no one could hold the U.S. accountable. The U.S. never really lost a war with consequences attached to it. Vietnam, etc., didn't have global consequences.
Right? Yes.
Exactly. This is
Trump managed to start a war against the one country that had the way to defeat him. I mean that seriously. Even China, Russia. Well, China maybe through rare earths, but apart from those three, no other country Trump attack could he lose to, because no other country controls something as important as the Strait of Hormuz.
First, and I think what we're seeing right now is those consequences, and the U.S. right now is jeopardizing the system it built after World War II, that system allowed the U.S. to become the hegemon it is, and now the U.S. is breaking that system, whether the fights with the United Nations, the fights with the alliance.
It's breaking the system in its attempts to keep the system going. The system as it is being challenged by the BRICS nations, Iran, China, Russia, setting up their own alternative methods of payment that circumvent the dollar. That is a threat to the U.S. dollar hegemony. It is no accident that there is a war in Ukraine against Russia and a war directly by the United States against Iran. We're trying to kill BRICS. And actually just taking out those two would be enough, because you need BRICS to set up a payment system that's not in the dollar. You need at least two countries trading. If it's just China, there is no BRICS. Thanks for the follow, Aries.
What happened in Venezuela. And what China's doing very strategically, that's probably an area of your expertise, they're very, very strategic. They're trying to fill that void. They're trying to come up and say, we are the mature adult in the room that will uphold international law and order. And I think this is something that the problem is voters won't see that. So Trump won't give a shit about it, neither will the next president. But in 10 years' time, we'll start feeling or the U.S. will feel the consequences of it.
Well, and
long before 10 years. 10 years is way too optimistic. I see by 10 years from now, the U.S. dollar spiraling in hyperinflation. It's still pretty far off, let's be clear. At least 5 years, I think, before we start being at risk of actual currency collapse. But it is coming.
Somebody who did vote for Trump 3 times, as an America First person, I've been a critic of the international system because I think that it really, there's a lot of downside risk to it for the United States. I realize there was a lot of benefits we reaped over 80 years, basically. But in the last 30 years, ironically, after the Cold War ended, in the last 30 years, it really became increasingly a drag on U.S. power and prestige. And there needed to be a rethinking, and there wasn't. And so this is the chance, I think, to really go back in and rethink the whole system. I would recommend, again, read Gene Kirkpatrick's essay from 1994 in the National Interest called normal country in a normal time. That was the argument. Her and Patrick Buchanan, and ironically, she was a neocon, but she agreed with Patrick Buchanan in '94 when he was saying we need to bring the legions home, stop being this sort of imperial power. The Cold War's over, communism's dead. And there's a lot of people in MAGA who became Trump supporters because that was the original message. And so if anything, like I said before, Trump or whoever is running things for the right in this country could easily convert this loss strategically into actually a win by pivoting away now and actually living up to that which President Trump said in his Riyadh speech last year: commerce over conflict. Bring the legions home, focus on the Western Hemisphere. That's the key.
And detach from Israel. I think this is one of the first steps he would do if he wants to turn this into a win.
Oh, that's not
the most consequential steps. Obviously, I think
Section 219. Yeah. By the way, did you see Scott Horton reported yesterday on Twitter that when the NDAA passes the Senate in the next couple months, the Israelis have already named the point person for this joint defense board with the
Yes, U.S. and Israeli military are getting merged. Israel is going to have access to all our military technology. Isn't that great?
U.S. For the Israeli side, it's going to be the former Mossad chief. So the former Mossad chief is going to be basically having full open kimono access to the U.S. defense technology innovation base.
Yay.
So what could possibly go wrong?
That's wild,
isn't it?
I think it's going to be Jonathan. It's going to be Jonathan Convery.
And streamers like Asmongold haven't even covered this yet.
Well, he'll have the last laugh then.
How was your conversation with the Admiral Mark Montgomery?
Nice guy. I actually, before we got going, I said I know you from somewhere, and I realized he worked for Senator John McCain. Yeah, well, no, he worked for Senator McCain, and I interacted with him during the A-10 battle, funding the A-10 about a decade ago when I worked on the Hill. So I was like, I remember you. But nice guy, and we agreed on some things in terms of sort of the logistical side of things. I completely disagreed with sort of his worldview, though, on autocracy versus democracy. And he had this sort of Manichean view of the international scene today. And so I politely pushed back on that. But he did agree with me on a couple of things I was surprised by. He did. So, for instance, I wasn't planning to take it there, but I was seeing kind of the news coming out of eastern Ukraine. And that's also impacted the Ukraine war.
Very supportive of Ukraine.
I know that. He had just got back from Ukraine. But he did concede when I asked him. I said, look, the depletion rate is not just going to affect our ability to conduct Middle East operations, obviously going to affect the Ukrainians. He agreed with that to a point. He said they were using different systems, though, then. Okay, fine. But I asked him, I said, do you think that the Russians are making advances on the Eastern Front now? And he said that he actually did. Yes, he said it is not a guarantee now that the Ukrainians are going to be able to stop the Russians from taking those two remaining fortress cities. He however, stressed the talking point that the Ukrainians have, or the Russians have lost, like, 1 million men, and the Ukrainians have only lost a small fraction of that.
It's impossible to know the exact. Everyone speculates.
I agree.
But 100 million. I speak to someone pro-Russian. They lost 10 men. It's like impossible.
Yeah, but it's also the inverse, though.
I personally, my guess is over 1 million lost on the Ukrainian side, 200 to 300 lost, 200 to 300,000 lost on the Russian side. That's my estimates for casualties in the Ukraine war. But no proof behind this, by the way. Just making that clear. It's just my guess.
You talk to some of these pro-Ukrainian people, it's like it doesn't even logically make sense. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle there. But the point is that there were some points he's clearly biased on, but he did concede that it wasn't as easygoing as some of the media was saying for Ukraine right now. So I thought that was interesting. But generally, he and I were in agreement on the logistical side of things. Generally, he was way too his case for why the Navy could break through was actually not based on logistics. It didn't sound like it, just sounded like it was sort of rah-rah, and I don't do rah-rah. So, and that's fine. He's a Navy guy. I understand that. That's his institution. I get it.
Did he make any interesting? Is there something I can? We the audience could learn about on the stockpiles aspect? We talk about the missiles. Or did he say on the missiles? Did you guys talk about it? Did he say on the missiles the long range could be replaced with dumb bombs and short range? So did he answer about the interceptors?
Yeah. So what he brought up was he too is concerned, and actually he expressed, which I was surprised he was surprised. As a Navy admiral, he should have known this, but he expressed surprise over how many Tomahawks we went through, which was about half the stockpile in such a short amount of time. That was surprising to me. He agreed, though, replacing those long-range precision strike systems. I brought up what I brought up to you right before that, which is the actual bottlenecks in the supply chain with things like rocket motors. And basically, he agreed with me that replacing those systems because of those bottlenecks going to be very difficult, because the Pentagon can get all the money in the world, but they're not actually figuring out how to spend that money to actually increase the production of those components and subcomponents needed for the missiles. His point was we will eventually be able to replace them, but not anytime soon that it'll have any impact on the military side of things in the near term. He stated his opinion that we have plenty of certain short and medium range systems, and he thinks that we should now, especially in Iran, escalate because in his view, we've degraded the Iranian air defenses and their radar network so much. We can now move in closer with those dumber bombs, of which we have more, and we can move in closer. And I disagreed vehemently with him on that because he thinks
the US should escalate.
He said the way forward is to escalate because we've degraded Iran militarily enough that we can have operational freedom. And I disagreed with that. And I said, look, sorry.
That's wild.
Go ahead.
Well, Iran, for one thing, is still completely capable of hitting ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It's attacked multiple ships over the last few days. And if the United States hasn't taken away Iran's ability to hit ships in the Strait of Hormuz, it sure as hell hasn't taken away Iran's ability to shoot down planes from the sky.
And the last point that I was going to say is, we went back and forth because he kept saying what Victoria Coates was saying to me, which is, they've been degraded. They don't have many missiles. They had more than we thought still, but it's still less than they would need to defeat us or to win. And I asked him, I said, but we've only hit what we can see. He conceded that, but he said he doesn't think the underground network of tunnels were as comprehensive or as advanced as what I was saying. But I think I'm right, obviously. This is a very dangerous prospect.
Anyway, because they're underground.
Well, I don't want to find out. How about that way? How about that?
A great answer. On the interceptor side, so he thinks they don't have enough missiles, so that even though they're depleted, their ability to fire missiles has been degraded so much that it doesn't matter if the interceptors are low.
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't think he would still advocate for escalation because he was pretty critical of the war. And he didn't think the war was.
He didn't sound critical to me. He didn't sound critical to me at all. And I didn't know he was with the Foundation of the Defense for Democracy, so he let me know that way through. And I was like, oh,
Foundation for Defense of Democracy, deep ties with CIA and globalists.
Okay, and that's when he got annoyed that I kind of pushed back on the autocracy versus democracy narrative. As an American, I don't care what.
In theory, it sounds great. I'm a believer in democracy.
In practice,
of course, it's terrible.
Yeah, but it's from a foreign policy standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. You do business with who you have to.
Yes, exactly.
The
reason why the U.S. deep state loves democracy, it's because it has a monopoly over global media, mainstream media. So when you control the media in countries, you control the democracy. You can get people to vote against their own interest if you give them the wrong facts. And you can get a U.S. puppet elected who's going to sell out the country, fuck over his own people, because he has the media on his side. And a nationalist who wants what's best for his own people, well, the media will turn against him and do everything it can to make sure he never gets elected. And if he gets elected, well, then there's U.S. turns to color revolutions like we did in Ukraine.
Takeaways from before we continue. Well, Sally talked about the insurance, etc. With Matthew Ho and Sal, anything else interesting that I'm just keen to learn? Anything I don't know? Anything I would learn? That would
Matt in the middle. So I like Matt a lot. Matt and I are buddies, and so
such a nice guy.
He's great and he's brilliant as well. And he had very kind things to say about Karen when he found out she was my next interview. But he and I kind of went down memory lane in the middle part of the interview, which actually was really helpful, I think, for the audience, because we started comparing the Obama national security policy process in Afghanistan with the complete lack of process in the Trump administration. And so we kind of walked the audience through some of the cogitations that Obama went through in the initial surge into Afghanistan and how the military tried to manipulate Obama into basically committing 250,000 troops, pulling up the reserves to basically do this reinvasion of Afghanistan in 2009 and 2010. And, he was involved, in the military at that point. So he was telling me some of his experiences and how Obama basically kind of had to walk back what he initially wanted to do because he realized the U.S. military system was dedicated to war no matter what, that they were not going to give him an off-ramp. So he did this sort of split the difference, solution that we ultimately got in the form of the Afghan surge. But we sort of compared that to what Trump was doing with Iran. And whereas there was a process, however messed up, in the Obama years, there was seemingly no process for the Iran war. We just literally, the president decided, because Netanyahu sold him on it, he was going to go to war.
Trump was tricked into this war. Venezuela made him fueled his ego, made it so that he thought he's invincible, can do anything. He thought he could just do Iran just like he did Venezuela. Quick operation, regime change, he's a hero. He goes down in history as the greatest president. And instead, he unleashes this hell that's going to tank his presidency.
And that was that. And so that was an interesting aspect of the interview, was sort of the technical side of things.
So just on the updates on the latest news. So in terms of the deal, the gentleman that
Give it to
said
me.
about hinting, he didn't say explicitly that there will be a fee. He also said sort of the deputy foreign minister Kazim. He talks about significant process having been achieved in the talks with Oman, and these developments are now on the verge of being finalized. Which confirms another thing that this confirms is that, and I've always made the point that the strikes we're seeing in the last few weeks is literally the barrel to the head, the barrel of the gun to the head. It's the US using military forces to try to get concessions from Iran, and Iran retaliating and not conceding. That's all it was in the last few weeks, which is reassuring, because one thing we've talked about, a lot of guests we're talking about, is the risk of this being a shaping operation for a ground operation, something more significant. I would say unless this has all been like the negotiations are the bluff and we see a ground operation by next week, that'll be an insane psyop, because everyone.
I don't think it'll be by next week. I think because of the depletion rate and because of the SPR, I think Trump might respect a 60 to 180 day pause.
I said it probably 2 weeks ago that there was a 10-day window to launch a ground invasion. That window has passed. I don't expect anything to happen on the ground now. We're getting too close to running out of oil, and we're getting too low on ammunitions.
And wait until after the politics settles down here, and then it's a whole new ball game. That's what my fear is. And I think Malcolm Nance would agree with the idea that all military operations right now are essentially shaping operations inherently. Whether they're going to lead to anything is another question. Yeah.
No, shaping. No, because it could be military operations. Could just be ways to get concession on the other side, and that would be it. Like that could be the only.
No, but there's always a second track with those in this case where yes, it is a negotiating thing, but if that fails, well, we've now degraded certain areas of the coastline, and if we eventually need to go in, it'll be easier in theory for us to go in because we've hit all those targets already.
I think the shaping operation is less so ground operation. It's more degrading Iran's ability to control.
Well, that's for sure. And to be fair, the Trump administration has been consistent in that. They have always said they're trying to degrade those capabilities.
That's right. Yeah.
And despite their efforts to degrade Iran's capabilities, Iran keeps hitting ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
I've always said that. So yeah, there's that letter sent out. There is also there is a very large fire aboard one or more vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. That was today. So the Iranians are still. That was in the morning. So that could have been. It could be from the. Yeah, it seems like more.
So much peace. Love the peace. This is great.
There's an article here by CNN about the depletion rates of the interceptors. I'll send it to you so you could discuss it with Kansian. You have Kansian next.
Yeah, Mark next. Yeah.
On this. They're trying to. Senior Pentagon officials are privately urging Senate Republicans to support a future reconciliation package that would include a major increase in defense spending, according to Axios, even more.
Yeah, well, they've got to. Actually, Matthew brought this up yesterday in my interview with them. They're going to have to.
Brent is down. Would have to be massive gaming going on if the reserves are running out and prices are dropping. Until there's a shortage. I'll bring up that graph again. I was going insane back in 2010 with just the actual state of what was going on in the food markets versus what was going on with price. Here, the world was heading towards the mother of all food crises, and the price went down. I wrote about 2010 food crisis about here, and prices went up to 9, from doubled. It will happen. You can't change the underlying reality, but this is what mainstream does. It can... As the world was heading towards the biggest food crisis in the last, 20, 30 years, they crashed the price by half. So I've seen this happen before. I know it seems strange, but all that oil that's missing from the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to have an impact. And I think that impact is going to start this month. You have nearly 1 billion barrels of oil that are missing from the market, and prices are down nearly where they were at the start of the war. It's completely batshit insane.
Backfill a lot of things that were spent, and so they're asking for additional tranches of cash. It never ends.
No, secret reserves aren't possible. If you've been following what the United States is doing, it's cutting corners. It's decommissioning ships because it doesn't have enough money to maintain them anymore. The submarines, too. It doesn't have enough weapons. It's running out of weapons. Do you think that they have secret oil reserves, but they allow themselves to run out of precision ammunition? Precision ammunition would be a higher priority. The oil reserves, U.S. strategic oil reserves, date back over 40 years to when United States still was a big powerhouse, to when we actually still had a manufacturing sector. It's part of our legacy military set up back then. We don't have any secret oil reserves, I guarantee you.
Also,
it's never
it's
enough.
also meant Trump also declined Zelensky. Could have been something he could have brought up with the admiral yesterday, but just came out today. According to the Financial Times, Zelensky requested 300 Patriot interceptors, and Trump declined that offer because he mentioned that the stockpiles are depleted. That was a warning being given from the beginning of the war, and it turned out the worst case scenario, in a way, unless someone really expected this to be a prolonged war, but like you kind of have a worst case scenario that unfolded: 50 to 75% of interceptors being depleted. So yeah, I think these are the news of the day. So I think now it's just speculating what could happen next. I think you know my stance hasn't shifted. If anything's been solidified.
We'll watch a video on the oil shortage situation after this to get a better sense.
How about yourself? Has it changed?
I wouldn't be surprised, given the fact that we're entering the political season both in Israel and the U.S., and it is not looking good. Contrary to what Trump is tweeting, it is very bad right now for the Republican Party. I wouldn't be surprised.
The only glimmer of hope is that everyone hates the Democrats. So that's hurting the Democrats, is how unpopular they are. But again, if oil prices explode, if you get $7, $8 diesel prices, yeah, Republicans are finished.
And the economy is, and we're depleting the stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump does by Friday sign a deal. It lasts for the next 60 days. And then after November, after that, it's a whole new ballgame, because I don't believe fundamentally Trump is okay.
The problem with that is that means he's accepting the political damage of losing to Iran. If he signs a deal and he lets Iran charge a 7% fee of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days, Iran's going to get a lot of money from that. It's a huge loss for Trump. He has said every day, every single day of this war, that Iran cannot charge a fee for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. For him to go back on that and to let them charge a fee, there'll be serious political damage from him. Yes, it might help the oil markets. It'd definitely be a smart thing to do it from that sense. But I don't think he's prepared to take that political loss of surrendering to Iran.
With this deal, I think he's just going to swallow the bitter pill to get us through this inconvenient time, and then afterward it will become a reopened problem.
If that was the case, he would have just stuck with the MOU. He already had that, something better, ships going through the Strait of Hormuz without any fee for 60 days, and he threw that away, and he's going to replace that with allowing ships through the Strait of Hormuz, but they charge a fee for 60 days. It's worse than the MOU that he rejected. Everyone will see this as a loss.
Problem again, because that has been the pattern since last June.
You think after the midterms we'll see a resumption of war similar to what we saw in March?
I don't know if it'll be on the same tempo, but I think it will be a resumption of hostilities. I just don't
the last
see
few weeks.
Maybe, or
I don't think the state of the oil market is going to allow that to happen. Once the shortage starts, there'll be panic. They won't be able to do manipulation to the extent they're doing it now, and no one will be prepared to have Iran close Strait of Hormuz again. It would be too much of a disaster. So I don't see, at least for a year, anyone attacking Iran.
Could eventuate in a ground incursion. The president seems
It's worse
really
than March.
Yeah, it would be worse than March then. I don't know though.
Why are you so worried about this?
Because the president, this is a pattern now since June. That's what I do. I recognize patterns. Since June of last year, it has been not one final sort of
Znef, you have to understand something about oil reserves. It's unpopular to build them. It's very unpopular to build them because to build up an oil reserve, you have to buy oil. Buying oil makes oil and gas prices in the United States go up. That's why when, for example, Biden draws down the strategic oil reserves, it's not replenished very fast because no president wants to be the one who drives inflation up. Everyone wants inflation down, interest rates down. So secret oil reserves would be fucking over whoever's president at that time by going into the market and buying oil. Also, it'd be impossible to really keep hidden or keep secret because you need to buy oil, and buying millions and millions and millions of barrels of oil, people notice that. It's not something you can hide.
conflict, it's been this sort of periods of relative peace and then explosions of conflict, and then, oh, it's too inconvenient now, we're going to end it, and then it goes back, and then it's going to be explosions.
And it's the storage itself. It's not like you can hide the storage, or you need to dig out caves, for example, like in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that we dug out salt caverns to form that. We need to, if you think there's a secret oil reserve somewhere, that means they had to dig out half a mountain to make enough space for all the oil, because it's not surface tankers, because you can see those from satellites. People would know about it. So you'd have to, and it'd have to be somewhere along the coast, because it has to be somewhere you can transfer from ships. No, and how do you, I just don't see, it's absolutely impossible for there to be any secret oil reserves in the United States.
Again, and so that's just been the pattern, and that's why. And the problem is, though, that pattern eventually you can't have normalcy in that. Eventually, there is no putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. At some point, you're just going to have to either. Well,
Humpty Dumpty's back together now. Why not just?
Is an F. To build a secret oil reserve, you need to get that oil to the secret place. Let's say, so first you have to build it somehow in secret. Okay, let's say if you do that, how do you get the oil there? You need oil through pipelines or through ships. Those are the two only realistic ways to build up a petroleum reserve, because I'm assuming something at least 50 million barrels. Otherwise, there's no real point. And you need to build pipelines. People notice building pipelines. If someone starts building pipelines off to a mountain without anything there, word would get around, like, what the fuck are they doing? And if it was ships they're going to get this from, if it was a secret petroleum reserve on the edge of the ocean, well, you'd need 25 ships at least to go there to get 50. If you're talking about the huge tankers, maybe twice that amount if you're smaller tankers. People notice that. There's ship trackers online. You can see where ships are going. If you have 25, a huge number of oil ships going to this location where there's not supposed to be anything, then people notice that there's 50 million barrels of oil that have disappeared off the market and no one knows, and prices are higher than they should be. People wonder, where did it go? Oh, there's all these ships going to this place. I wonder why all those ships are going to that place. So that there must be a secret oil facility there, and everyone knows. So it's not possible to set up a secret oil facility. It really isn't.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a whole new. It's they're trying to do a whole new deal now. It's a whole. They're going to be tolls on the strait. It's a whole new thing. Iran.
What is far more likely, if you've heard something about a secret oil reserve, is that that is propaganda by the United States desperate to get oil prices down. Yes, then there's an oil glut. There's a secret, unlimited fountain of oil that the United States can just open and pour into the world. Yes, they'll be spreading those rumors online like crazy to try to get the oil price down.
Iran is now in a more powerful position.
Why can't he just walk away?
I don't think he wants to walk away because he doesn't want to be seen as having been humiliated. I think this ego, and I think there's also a lot of people, we know Rubio's been saying, there's a lot of people in his circle, maybe they weren't for the war, but they're saying you can't leave the strait in Iran's hands. You can't do this. And so there's a lot of inputs he's receiving. Again, hope I'm wrong, but the last year has been a very clear pattern.
Okay, here is the biggest reason. I just think it's talk about the secret oil reserve is stupid. SPR levels. Let's go a graph of strategic oil reserve. Here. So this is basically right here, strategic oil reserves. You see, look, Biden takes it down here. That means in the official, normal, not secret, strategic petroleum reserve, there is 200 million barrels of spare capacity. Now, why in the world would the United States build up a secret reserve and spend money building storage facilities, spending even more money to try to secretly move oil there, when they could just put more oil into the official, when there's plenty of room to put oil into the official petroleum reserve? That's just stupid. And it would be noticed in terms of building up oil. You see, even here, this buildup of oil, that puts upward prices on oil. Anytime, anywhere in the world, someone builds up their reserves of oil, they need to buy oil, which makes oil go higher.
where he will make a deal or he'll do something to end the war, and then 6 months later, 4 months later, 3 weeks later, we're right back to where we were.
I'll tell you this. I'll wrap it up with the following. I think the war has not ended, but has shifted. I know I've said this about proxy wars. I'm more now. I did a tweet.
Rather, well, let me put it to you this way, is Neff. Rather than building a secret oil reserve, what the United States could just do is add 100 million barrels into the official reserve and just keep that quiet, and have the actual reserves be here, and when say publicly that they're here. I'm just saying, there's no reason to build another secret reserves. You could just lie about how much oil you have in the official reserves if you're going to do that. It costs far less money than building a new secret reserve.
After my call with a gentleman that gives me all that information, the strategy on by the Americans now is weakening Iran through proxies or through interests across the region, improving alliances with countries like Syria, building pipelines away from the Strait of Hormuz, working with Syria, working with Turkey, working with other Gulf countries, mainly Syria, Turkey, and Iraq, to build those pipelines. I think Syria is going to be an extremely important piece in all this.
Absolutely.
Iraq has always been an important piece, but Syria is going to probably be the emerging big pillar in all this for the Americans.
And Central Asia.
Iran. Central Asia, yes.
Because it's coming out of Azerbaijan, the Zangezur corridor, right?
Yeah.
That whole network.
Armenia,
That's what that's
Azerbaijan.
about.
Vance was an.
Besides, when we're talking about oil, one of the whole points of having a strategic oil reserves is for it to be known. It's to reassure the market that there won't be shortages. It's make people not panic. If you have a secret reserve, that doesn't reassure the market at all.
Armenia a few months ago.
Yeah, he was.
So they'll be working with all these different allies. He'll be trying to alienate Iran. He'll be trying to force them into concessions, and they might use those. So we won't see. I don't think sanctions will be lifted. I don't think much money will be unfrozen, and I think they'll leverage sanctions, assets being unfrozen, and other countries as well to try to get a nuclear deal, but also try to get the fee removed from the Strait of Hormuz. Well, the nuclear deal, I don't know if anything will come out of this one, but yeah, he needs a nuclear deal. Now, this is where one could worry, and this is where Pape's escalation trap kicks in, is that when you're playing those games, you don't know when the Iranis have been a lot more unpredictable because they come out of this war with different Iran. You don't know when the Iranians will come out of this, say, we're done with these games, and they attack to try to get the U.S. fighting.
And they have a lower tolerance. They have a lower tolerance now.
Exactly.
Trump would want to reassure people because the midterms are 3 months away, and people panicking about gas prices draws attention to gas prices and oil prices. And so that's everything Trump has been doing in this war. Half of it has been trying to reassure people about the supply demand in the oil market. So if he could suddenly announce, we actually have this 100 million barrels of oil that we've secretly stashed up, that would be huge to manipulate the market. It would be it would send oil crashing. So if Trump could get away with it, he'd actually absolutely announce it.
Okay, this is where if I think strikes could happen, that's how they could happen. This is where
I agree. Very concerned. I'm concerned about that too. But I'm very skeptical that this is truly the end, and I hope I'm wrong. But
and when I say it's the end, I'm only referring to the Trump administration.
Well, listen, the Trump administration, one way or the other, is over. But they're just.
Oh, yeah. Well, I am different in that I expect prices to go up before the election. That's why I think this war is such a disaster for Trump. And I think Iran wants them to go up before the election. Houthis joined in closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is proof that I think Iran wants to force oil up before the election to hurt mid-Trump.
Sort of a zombie administration now.
No, man, I couldn't look at any platforms. He's going to win the Senate. Not the House.
Even if it doesn't matter, he's a lame duck. It does. He has expended so much political capital on this war.
He's going to be a lame duck. He isn't yet a lame duck. He hasn't yet surrendered to Iran. If he accepted this 7% fee on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, then yes, you can call him a lame duck because he will have surrendered to Iran, and that will be devastating to him politically. And yes, I agree to calling him a lame duck at that point. We're not there yet.
And he's going to spin it, I know, and that's fine. But the people are tired, man. The people here are tired, and I still think.
How are they tired, Brandon? How are they tired? He literally just saved you all from a nuclear weapon. What are you talking? He saved your life.
A nuclear weapon that he destroyed in June of last year.
Exactly. They were going to fire it in June 14th. He destroyed it on June 12th. He's so unappreciative.
See, the fact that you and I can joke,
man, ungrateful.
The fact that we could even make these jokes shows you how much of a failure that is.
I would actually expect Iran to have its eye on the bigger prizes than helping Democrats win the midterms against the Republicans. What bigger prize is there than regime change in the United States? If you're Iran and you want to make sure no one bombs your supreme leader again, what better revenge is there than getting Democrats to win the midterms, getting Trump impeached and removed from power? Iran can directly do regime change in the United States as payback for having their supreme leader killed. It would establish deterrence to a level that nothing else could. Why wouldn't it? That is actually the strategy that makes most sense if you're Iran.
Presidency has been. It should never even have gotten to this point.
I mean, what Iran cares about most of all, above everything else, is making sure it's not bombed again 6 months after this conflict ends. And to do that, you need to establish deterrence. Extracting a huge political price to Trump, the president that attacked them, is the best way to establish that deterrence.
But stranger things have happened in American politics, and let's face it. Look,
you live and you don't learn.
But I will say the Democrats have also been very unimpressive during this period. They had a golden opportunity to really do.
Yes, I hate it so much. The Democrats have done nothing to deserve winning the midterms, and victory is going to be handed to them. I hate it.
Damage to Trump's presidency for a legitimate reason, not like Russia collusion, not the Ukrainian impeachment thing.
The Democrats will impeach Trump if they are elected, if they could take control of Congress, the House and the Senate. There are some that will say, well, maybe we should keep him. An unpopular president will be good for 2028, but that isn't going to work. The hatred for Trump is too strong in the left, and they will demand impeachment, and so he will be impeached. And if there's an actual oil shortage because of a war he started by choice, without Congress's approval, that is a legitimate reason to impeach him. So there's a very, very, very real chance that Trump gets removed from office at some point. It's not something I'm happy about, but that's the reality I see.
But for a real thing, he really made a mistake here. And they really have not. They've really fumbled that. And like Matthew and I talked about, having worked on the Hill opposite of the Democrats, was always very impressed by their organizational management. The Democrats are...
Oh, yeah. Trump has been impeached multiple times already. You're right, Zenef. But those times when he was impeached, it was bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. But this time around, Trump has given the Democrats a valid reason to impeach him. Starting a war without authorization from Congress, a war that ends up wrecking the global economy. I mean, if that's not an impeachable offense, then what is?
Much better in terms of organizing and managing sort of technocratic, endeavors. The fact that they weren't able to do more damage to the Trump presidency politically, I think they purposely held off because a lot of the people who run the Democrats are also in hock to the...
I agree with you that Democrats let this happen. They're still supporting it, just quietly. Absolutely. But that doesn't change the reality that Trump didn't even try to go to Congress to get approval for this war. He didn't try to sell it to the American people. Bush, before Iraq, he got authorization from Congress. He tried and successfully convinced the majority of Americans that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, blah. Trump did none of that. He started a major war that's going to wreck the global economy without discussing it with anyone, without consulting Congress, without talking to the American people about it. He just went on his own and did it. And that's not supposed to happen. Congress is supposed to declare major wars like that.
These Israeli donors. And so they don't want to go too hard. The younger Democrats do, but they're being kept back by the older Democrats in charge. So this was a missed opportunity. If I'm a Democrat, I'm sitting there going, how did you not do to Trump what we did to George W. Bush? And so...
I'll wrap it up with a few quotes from Netanyahu. He's giving a speech right now. Israel's existence is not subject to negotiation with or without an agreement. I don't like how he just flips into Israel's existence. I think this is what we call... I think this is the definition of gaslighting.
He's a drama queen.
Israel's a strong nation. It's like your girlfriend or wife says, "Can you please do the dishes more often? It would help me a lot because I've been really busy." And they'd be like, "Babe, I'm not going to accept you filing for a divorce. I will not sacrifice our marriage as you are right now." Exactly. Israel's a strong nation state, proud of its identity and confident in the justice of its path. Okay. We will not establish a Palestinian terrorist state. Okay. IDF soldiers are the most heroic, the most moral, and the most slandered soldiers on earth. Okay.
Yes,
And lastly,
IDF better than everyone, according to the IDF.
this is the one I've been waiting to get to. Many world leaders around the world tell me, Prime Minister, we appreciate you. We even admire you. And we need you. They tell me Israel's our model in the struggle against extremist Islam that threatens the entire civilized world. I hear it in our region, in Europe, in Latin America, and across all the continents. He's saying that in Hebrew, so this is obviously political.
Uh-huh.
And then he says, Zionism has won. Benjamin Ze'ev Herzl has won. We are victorious. Okay, he's not hiding.
You know, Tucker is on the right side of history, or whatever, or the good side, or whoever, whatever you want to call it, because he talks about the taboo subjects, like World Trade Center 7. Like, he challenges, like, everyone's for this Iran war. He is not on board with the deep state agenda there. On so many subjects, he talks about stuff the establishment does not want talked about and knowledge to be spread about, like Ukraine. He is not on board with the narrative that Ukraine are the complete good guys and it's all is evil Russia. So I'm not going to go into why Ukraine is not actually good guys, but just the fact that they're honoring Nazi war criminals that, murdered 100,000 Poles should give you an idea that maybe Ukrainians aren't exactly the best of people. Specifically the current leadership. I'm not going to say all Ukrainians. I mean the nationalist government currently in Ukraine are not the good guys.
Hiding it. Honestly, when they talk in Hebrew, they literally speak their mind, don't they?
Well, I guess, it's
Zionism has won.
the old line, if you will it, dude, it is no dream. But I would be, it's very interesting. He sort of sounds like Trump, right? Some people tell me this is the greatest thing. It's very interesting how he's really taken on some of the Trumpier, because he wasn't like this before Trump came around. He was always over the top, but in a different way. This is, it's very Trumpy. Look, the Israelis know that they are isolated now. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to navigate the new Middle East one way or the other.
Long-term, Israel is screwed just because of how much they've turned the world against them, and specifically the U.S. population against them.
There is a new Middle East, and it is one in which now Iran has a lot greater say, and much, is going to be over time, unless the regime collapses, is going to be much more integrated. And by the way, there is going to be sort of internally within the regime. You mentioned this with the IRGC element, the more moderate element, the more, there is going to be over the next couple of years, whether there's another round of hostilities or not, there is going to be a sort of fight inside of the regime for the soul of the regime. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out too.
I agree. That's a very important point that I think more people will talk about how things will happen internally, because Iran they've got their
But that'll happen after this current round of hostilities ends.
own issues they got to sort, and they got to come out of this.
Yeah. Because in some ways the war saved them, right? Because if the Americans had never intervened in February, even though the Tehran was cracking down on the protesters, there was still this incipient feel of anger for the economic situation inside of Iran toward the government. And the war really kind of distracted that. And the government was able to channel that, and it saved the regime.
Just a completely separate question as I wrap up, unrelated, and for the
About the Spook playbook includes giving topics silent treatment, and in rare cases that doesn't work, send in one of their own to finesse it. Yes, that's how the entire mainstream media operates as a whole. It doesn't cover a topic like, let's say, the rape inquiry in the UK. It doesn't give that any coverage at all. And to the extent that they even talk about it is to try to discredit it. Exactly. Yes, Tucker worked at Fox News. Hey, at a point in time, I also believed what the mainstream media was selling. No one starts out perfect. In fact, everyone at some point is part of believes the propaganda. Different people stop believing it at a different time. And what matters is what Tucker is covering now. If he's covering topics that the establishment does not want covered, he is helping. Like talking about the rape inquiry report. Every commentator that talks about it spreads awareness, makes the situation better by raising awareness. He, on a ton of topics, is raising awareness of the truth that is inconvenience to the establishment, and for that reason, Tucker is right now definitely a force for good. I will say that I am not excited about his trying to set up a third political party because that has never worked. The way politics works in America, the election system, is a two-party system. Third party just doesn't work. You have to do what Trump did, take over one of the two parties and force it to change. That's the only way to do anything. The third political party has never accomplished anything in the United States.
The audience, I'm going to mention something a bit sensitive, so you can jump off if you don't want to hear it. But something I was just about to go to sleep last night. Did you see the news about? Do you know the guy, the Hollywood guy, Perez Hilton?
Yes. I mean, I don't know him, but
yeah. Did you see what happened yesterday? You see the video that came out?
I did. It was quite disturbing. That was just across the way from me. That was in Miami. Yeah.
I watched it before going to sleep. I watched the video.
Yeah.
I can't unwatch it. It is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking.
It is.
Go through this.
It is. But if I can just, I don't want to get in trouble here. But if I can just say, that
you're saying you disagree about the two-party thing. There's no way for the third party to become big enough to win an election in one cycle. So, there will be at least one or two major elections where it's just a spoiler and it means giving control to the Democrats. And they could do untold amount of damage during that time. Whereas what Trump did, look at what Trump did. He came over, he took over the Republican Party, and he forced the Republican Party to change. And he didn't give control to the Democrats. Rather, he created a red wave that lifted up Republicans. The third party strategy, it's the opposite. It weakens the conservative side of America by splitting the conservative vote, and it empowers the leftists. And until it gets big enough, it may take a decade to get big enough, it just means giving permanent control to the Democrats. It allows you men and women's sports, all the Democratic nonsense. You can have actual communism. America would become a communist country before a third party would become big enough to win elections because there's so much inertia in politics. Whereas what Trump did was instant. In 4 years, he had reshaped the Republican Party. It's so much more effective. If Tucker Carlson ran on the Republican ticket, he could do the same thing. Take over the Republican Party, reshape it like Trump did, and reshape it. That's what we need. The Republican Party, it's better than the party in 2016. Republican Party in 2016, it was pro-outsourcing, pro-migration. It was a disaster. Republican Party is still terrible now, but it's slightly better than it was in 2016. Tucker comes in, reshapes it, another round of reshaping. It might start to look actually good.
That is a reason why what you saw last.
Well, if they're not satisfied with their party, Trump wasn't satisfied with the Republican Party, and he changed it, and it worked. Whereas I've seen Ross Perot, all the people in the past that have tried to start a third party have never accomplished anything. Whereas Trump, his strategy worked. So if you want to change things, adopt the strategy that works, what Trump did.
Tonight, in my opinion, this is my personal take. This is why you need Jesus. Okay, that you gotta.
He was saying just before, someone I found a video by accident. A month before that, he was saying, "I found God, I met God, I'm speaking to God." Literally a month before that. I think it's just
then he needs to get a better pastor then. But no, look, that's very sad. We see that happen. Yeah,
but on your point on religion, I was actually speaking to a very close person to me about religion, and they were telling me how, unrelated to this whole discussion, but they were telling me they're actually Muslim, not Christian, but they were telling me how they tried hard to be religious because it helped them tremendously. They were explaining why. It's a very interesting conversation.
Oh, it is.
Before I started my interviews. But that video, I don't recommend anyone watching it. Just Paris Hilton was trying to commit suicide live on TikTok. But it was
also
just
shows you though mental health issues are a big problem today.
It is an insane problem. It is an insane problem that is just not being considered. And that what really got me pissed off is, first, it puts life into context, and second is like fuck it, focus on those things rather than start new wars. There's people suffering like him in the United States and every other country, and instead of putting the money and effort towards that, you put it into building more interceptors and missiles to bomb other countries and cause them similar issues. How do you think everyone that lost kids in the Manab school bombing would feel? What struggles would they be going through in life? It's just sad. It just pisses me off. It pisses me off.
Yeah, there's tons of tragedy in this war so far. Hopefully there won't be any more direct tragedies, as in victims of bombing. There'll still be victims of this war in terms of hunger next year.
Yeah, I get it. It's sad. It's sad, and hopefully, he gets the help he needs. And I know I think
I hope so, man. It was such a heartbreaking video. Anyway, I know it's unrelated for the audience. I apologize if I brought up something unrelated. But Brandon, you're going to be live in 3 minutes with Colonel.
Okay, this was a great video. We also had a chance to discuss some other topics, which was interesting. In any case, I don't think what's being worked out now, this deal between Iran and the Omanis, will go anywhere because Iran's planning to charge a 7% fee. And if Trump agrees to that, he's basically surrendering to Iran. That is what the media will spin it as. That's what neocons will spin it as. That is what Netanyahu will spin it as. And the damage to him will be enormous. So I don't think he's prepared to do that. So more pause, maybe some more bombing from Trump. Everything stays in limbo. And we just wait for the oil to run out. This will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Can watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye.